So the topic today, as I mentioned, is the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha liked to teach in lists because they weren't writing stuff down when he was teaching. So these were just ways that he could help people remember the teachings. So this is really like Buddhism 101, these Four Noble Truths, meaning that all of his other teachings basically in some way came back to these teachings of the Four Noble Truths. Some of his students actually asked him once, like, why don't you teach about this and this and this? You know, a lot of people like to ask him questions like, what's the meaning of life and what happens after we die and all these big religious questions. And oftentimes he just didn't answer those questions. And so when his student asked him, why don't you teach this and this and this? He's like, I teach one thing and one thing only. And that's suffering and the end of suffering. So that's what the Four Noble Truths are about. That might sound kind of dire, suffering. That's kind of a downer. But this came from his years and years of practice and observing his own mind and observing the world around him. And he just noticed that there's a lot of suffering in this world. And that isn't necessarily suffering with a big S, like trauma with a big T. A lot of times the suffering that he talked about, he also used the words stress. I mean, he wasn't speaking in English, right? So these are all translations. Stress or tension or dissatisfaction. And that stuff is present everywhere, right? Like I was just reflecting on this morning on my drive here, like, yeah, almost in every part of my life, there's some sort of like dissatisfaction, tension, suffering in some way. So it's really, really pervasive. Even, he talked about the process of being born, the process of getting old, the process of getting sick, and the process of dying, which happens to every single human. Those all involve some form of suffering, right? Some form of pain. So it's happening. It's happening to all of us. So I'm just going to list the Four Noble Truths first, and then I'll talk a little bit more about all of them. The first noble truth. There is suffering. There is suffering. There is this dissatisfaction. It's just around. So to me, that's like, oh, well, that's a relief. I'm not doing life wrong if I'm suffering. And it actually opens myself a little bit to compassion. Like, it's so pervasive that, and suffering isn't necessarily a great translation, let's say dissatisfaction or whatever. It's so pervasive that when I'm meeting somebody, most likely they're going through some form of stress or suffering. It also means immediately that when you come into spaces like this, it's not just about like good vibes only, right? Like we come as we are because we come with our minds, and it's all about meeting our minds and understanding our minds, which comes to the other noble truths. So that's first noble truth, there's suffering. Second noble truth is the cause of the suffering. Okay, he's starting to give a formula here. He actually talked about himself as a doctor. So there's the disease, which is the suffering, or the diagnosis. The cause is that craving. Craving is the cause of suffering. I'll come back to that. The third noble truth, there's a prognosis. Hey, there is an end to suffering. It's possible to end suffering. Third noble truth. And then the fourth noble truth is the prescription or the treatment, which is he actually laid out a path to ending suffering. He called it the Noble Eightfold Path. So 1, 2, 3, 4 noble truths. It's important to note that these four noble truths are not like beliefs. They're not things that you need to believe in. There's no blind faith in Buddhism. These are categories of experience. Categories of experience. And that also means that when we're talking about the ending of suffering and the eightfold path, the fourth noble truth of how to get out of it, it's not about right or wrong, good or bad. I'm like a good meditator or a good person, or I'm doing things good or bad. It's about, is what you're doing causing suffering, or is it helping to end suffering? That's what we orient this path, the whole Buddhist path around, is oriented around, is it causing suffering, increasing suffering, or is it decreasing suffering, ending suffering? So coming back to this first noble truth again, understanding this is pretty radical, right? There's a lot of paths out there, religions out there, I think, that even like family traditions. I know this is the case in my family sometimes, which is like, oh, there's something negative, people are having a hard time with something. We're not going to talk about that, right? We're going to like sweep it under the rug. But this practice of meeting our minds, and we did it a little bit in our meditation practice, we weren't trying to get rid of the uncomfortable sensations, right? It's about being with what is and waking up to what is in this moment so that we can end the suffering that is in this moment. This is also not about like, okay, if you're feeling pain, cut it off. It's also not about if you're feeling joy, cut it off. The Buddha talked about what he called the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows, meaning in this life, we're going to experience all these joys and these sorrows. We're going to experience pain. The suffering comes in when we stress out about not wanting the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. When we want there to be another now. I think Pema Chodron said that. Pema Chodron is an American nun in the Tibetan Shambhala tradition. Wanting there to be another now. So last month, my mom was actually in the hospital. That's why I've been traveling a lot. So I was in LA to see her. But before I went to LA, she was in the hospital. And my entire family is in LA except for me. So there were all these feelings of, well, I want to know what's going on. And I'm texting everyone being like, what's the update? What's the update? Meanwhile, they're all there in the hospital. So I was having these feelings of like, should I be there? Should I be there? I feel bad. I feel bad not being there. That was a sorrow, one of the 10,000 sorrows. What I did not do, I was very conscious to try not to do, is then to add onto that extra stress of like, oh, I'm such a bad daughter. Why aren't I there? Why do I live in Nashville when everyone else lives in LA, right? There's so many other things I could have added onto it to basically add fuel to the fire of just the pain that was going on in that moment. So the pain versus the suffering. So that kind of comes to the second noble truth, diving into that a little bit. That craving is the cause of suffering. The adding of the fuel onto the fire of the original pain. The craving of wanting it to be a certain way or wanting it to not be a certain way. And this is not just regular want. It's like, it must be like this, or it cannot be like this. The Buddha actually called these causes of suffering, these sources of craving, the three poisons, which is craving or greed, meaning I want it, I have to have it. Hatred or aversion, meaning get it the fuck away from me. The third thing is delusion or ignorance, which is, oh, that thing over there? Yeah, don't tell me about that. Like, sweep it under the rug, get it, I just don't want to know, right? Do you see that there's a little bit of like, there's like a hookedness of like, I don't want that thing. So the three poisons. And oftentimes this craving centers around me, myself, and I, right? And that can be a sign of when am I craving, when I'm centering everything around me. Some teachers call it the me train, right? Where you're like on a train and everything is about me, starts for me and ends with me. And so are you orienting yourself around me? I talked about this once in a gathering like this. And one of the people that was participating, they said, hang on a second though. Like I'm in a stage in my life right now, in a situation in my life right now, where not only am I on the me train, I've bought myself, and I'm constantly buying myself, a first-class ticket to the me train because I need to take care of myself right now. No one else is putting me first. I need to put me first. So is that so bad? And of course, the first thing I said was, it's not about bad or good, right? It's about, is it causing more suffering? Is it wise action to say, I need to put myself in the center of all these things? So the action may be, I need to set boundaries or I need to prioritize myself when I'm thinking about X, Y, Z. But is there an element of craving to it? Is there an element of like almost compulsiveness? Like I can't help it. Like I need to do this, and kind of putting on the blinders of saying, I'm not even thinking about what else is out there or what the situation is and how this affects other parts of me. It's like this blinders of this craving. How do I approach it? How do I approach the situation that's causing me pain? So with the example of my mom, right? If I had gone down this rabbit hole of suffering, for me, I know what it feels like in my body when I get tight, like I can't think about other things. I lose all sense of humor. I'm just like this thing, like very, very narrow. And then I spin, right? Like my mind starts to go like this, like what if this, what if that, what if this happens? Why didn't that happen in the past? All these things. So if I've been stuck in that, I did actually end up going to LA, right? And when I went to LA, it was a very quick decision. If I had been stuck in that suffering and those loops of the suffering, I don't think I would have been able to make a decision that quickly. I think I would have continued to be stuck. And so when I was able to make that decision quickly, that was a wise decision to make, even though it was like very quick. It could have seemed impulsive, but it wasn't, because I had that groundwork of knowing that there's pain right now. There's pain right now. I know what I'm thinking. I know what I'm feeling right now. So if we talk a little bit more about this pain versus suffering, there's a pithy little formula that I heard once that says pain times resistance equals suffering. And so what does that mean? That resistance is that craving, that adding of the fuel to the fire. So, maybe we can think of some examples where there's pain, but we're not adding resistance. Like one that I experience on a weekly basis, because I go to a class that's very painful, it's like working out, right? Like a lot of times when you work out, when you're lifting weights, whatever it is, it's painful. But do we come out of it being like, oh my God, that was so horrible, I'm never doing that again, that was pure suffering? Maybe sometimes, but like usually not. I've also heard that, I've not experienced this myself, but for those of you in this room who have experienced childbirth, I've also heard childbirth is like this, where it's like super painful, but it's not necessarily suffering, because there aren't all these storylines that we spin around the pain, right? There's not all these scenarios that we take from it and all this fuel that we add to the fire. And so another time, another community member, when I was talking about this, asked me, well, there's a lot of violence in my community right now. What's wrong with craving an end to the violence? You could also think of it as like, I broke my arm. It really, really hurts. What's wrong with craving an end to this pain? So this, again, is the difference between pain and suffering, where there's the pain of the broken arm, there's the pain of the violence in the community, and there's the real desire to end that pain, which then can lead to action to end the pain. In the middle, what are we adding to it? What are we adding to it that could make that pain worse, right? So, you could ask yourself, what are you attaching to the wanting? What are you attaching to the story? Are you attaching storylines to the wanting of the pain to end? What sense of self are you adding to it? How are you making it personal? Who or what are you not seeing as you think about wanting the pain to end? And what does it feel like in the body? Does it feel tight and constricted? Do you feel like you have tunnel vision? And so the flip side of that could be something just to contemplate, right? Which is, what if we could just experience the pain or the joy, 10,000 sorrows, 10,000 joys, and just take care of them. Just take care of the pain, take care of the joy, which means enjoy it, but maybe not get stuck onto having it have to be like that forever. So what if we could just experience the pain or the joy and just take care of it without having it solidify or add to the clinging or the craving? So just keeping in mind that this is about what alleviates suffering. It's not about how to be a good person. It's about what alleviates suffering. And so that comes to the third noble truth, again, that, yay, there's an end to suffering. It's not all just about suffering. There is an end. And so that's a really quick teaching. Is like, okay, that's good. Like, it's like inspiring that there's an actual end. There's a cure. And then the fourth noble truth, I'm not going to go into all of the eightfold path. There are actually 8 path steps, or you can think of them as practice steps. But I'll just summarize in saying that The Eightfold Path really revolves around cultivating wisdom and freedom. It's freedom from suffering. They're organized into 3 categories. One is ethical conduct. So how do you live your life? Which clears the way for wisdom to arise. The second is clarity or strength of mind. So basically like doing that concentration practice that we just did. Clarity or strength of mind, which then settles the mind, which then allows wisdom to arise. And then the third category is wisdom, practices to cultivate wisdom. And so that wisdom category actually starts with what's called right view. Right meaning, does it help to alleviate suffering? Right view, which is actually includes understanding these Four Noble Truths. So understanding that there is suffering, abandoning the cause of suffering, abandoning craving, realizing that there's a cure, yay, and then developing our path as a practice. Again, remember, it's not like commandments, it's developing these 8-fold steps as a practice. So, final story, and then I'll close. When I first started on my path of practice and meditation and Buddhism, I was an investment banker living in London, living a super stressed out life, working like 80 to 100 hours a week. I had no spiritual background at all. I started practicing because I was stressed out, because I was suffering, right? And I was like, I just need something. I started practicing. I wasn't trying to change my life, honestly. I was just trying to relieve my stress. Over time, I was practicing a lot, going on retreats and doing, practicing community, practicing by myself. Over the course of those 15 to 20 years, I've completely changed my life. And this is not to say that like you come to Buddhism and you're supposed to change your life. It just naturally happened because I was waking up to the causes of suffering in my life and the causes of suffering around me, to the point where it was like, I couldn't go to work for just the profit of the company I was working for anymore. So I work in climate change now. I work for a nonprofit. The people that I surround myself with are totally different from the people I surrounded myself with then. And I am really able to see the things that cause suffering because I still have people in my life from before, like my family, right? I really do see the causes of suffering in their lives. And I can approach it with a sense of compassion, right? Because it's not like they're wrong, they're bad. It's like, okay, they're suffering. I know what it feels like to suffer. So this path really is a path also of compassion, of wisdom and compassion. So I'm going to pause there.